Hey YouTube, this is Alexander, and Google has heard our cries for a revitalized Nexus 5, and they've answered back with the Nexus 5X. Now I've been using this newly reincarnated Nexus 5 for an entire week, so I think it's about time for a full video review. Without any further ado, this is my Nexus 5X review. Let's start with price, color, and configuration. The Nexus 5X is available in carbon, quartz, and ice starting at $379 US for the 16GB version, or for $50 more, you can upgrade and get a 32GB model. Here though, I've went ahead and picked up the 16GB quartz model, but should you satiate your craving for an upgraded Nexus 5 and pick one up? Let's find out. Starting with build and feel in the hand, the Nexus 5X's body is made of polycarbonate, which isn't bad, but it does make this phone feel a little less premium than say something like a Nexus 6P. Also, I'm not sure if it's just my unit or if others are reporting this as well, but the bottom back of the phone creaks just a bit when pressure is applied. Other than that, the phone feels amazing, to be honest. Sure, it's basically a plastic back, but this thing is so easy to hold and use with one hand, I really like it. The 5X weighs in at 136 grams, but it honestly feels much lighter somehow. Perhaps the worst thing about the build materials or quality of the phone are these buttons on the side. So on the right side we have our volume rocker and power button, and they just don't feel that great. They lack good feedback, feeling a little mushy when pressed, and neither one has any texture to help the user differentiate between the two. But this is getting into nitpicky territory. I'd say they're pretty basic buttons, so don't expect a whole lot. Moving around the phone, we do have a USB Type-C port, which surprisingly doesn't utilize Qualcomm's quick charge technology, but Google has included some sort of fast charging to make up for it. Does it work just as well? Yeah, for the most part, pretty much. So no need to worry about that, but we'll get into battery life a little later in the review. Furthermore, the USB Type-C port is handy since you can plug the cable into your phone either way, and you can do cool tricks like charge other phones up using your own, but it still is going to render all your existing non-USB Type-C cables useless. But I guess that's the price you sometimes pay for being an early adopter of new technology. Anyway, the headphone jack is also on the bottom, which is a great move by Google because that's where it belongs on all phones. Let's move on to the back. So here on the back we'll find a few different things. First off, we have a 12 megapixel camera capable of recording up to 4K video, as well as laser autofocus and a dual LED flash right beside it. Now the camera is sporting Sony's IMX377 sensor, which Google says was actually meant for point and shoot cameras, which explains the hump on the back of the phone. So what does all this jargon translate into? Well, very impressive photos, I'd say. In good lighting, photos are sharp, noise is virtually non-existent, colors are accurate, and the photo is an all-around beauty. There is one thing to mention though. In good lighting without HDR+, the whites tend to become blown out or clipped, and the overall photo is overexposed, resulting in less saturated colors. But once you turn on HDR+, that problem is eliminated and your exposure is much more accurate. Turn down the lights and we begin to notice some noise, especially without HDR+. But again, enabling HDR+ really helps out with color accuracy and noise reduction. Another thing to note is that the camera tends to have trouble focusing on closer objects. Oh, and the camera is actually pretty wide angle, capable of getting a lot in the photo. Now the camera app has also gotten a slight makeover. It's very simple and doesn't support manual controls nor raw capture, but being able to quickly swipe from camera mode to video recording mode is awesome, and the slow-mo looks great too. Overall, the camera is a huge improvement over the Nexus 5 and to a lesser extent the Nexus 6. Now just under all that fancy camera equipment, we have this small unpronounced ring here. This is where the fingerprint sensor lives, which Google has dubbed Nexus Imprint. Nexus Imprint has been a pleasure to use in every way. Setting it up is very quick, only requiring a few seconds to get it going, and using it to unlock the 5X is very quick as well. I've never noticed any lag, but it did sometimes struggle to register that anything had even been placed there, but I noticed that to happen once I picked my phone up from it being idle for a while, so maybe it has something to do with Android 6.0's doze putting it to sleep. Anyway, it's also super convenient. As mentioned in my first impressions video, I thought it might be weird having it on the back, but it's turned out to be very useful and easy to get adjusted to. Traveling around the front, we can see that 5.2-inch 1920 by 1080p LCD display protected by Gorilla Glass 3. How does it look? Well, nice actually. Now I'll be honest, once you go AMOLED, it's hard to go back, but this display does look good. It is a bit on the warmer side, but to be honest, that's not something you'd even notice without putting it up against some other phones. Seeing it in direct sunlight is not an issue, and viewing angles are really nice too. Using the display is very comfortable since it's smaller than both Nexus 6's and closer to the Nexus 5. Now underneath the display is the single loudspeaker. It's unfortunate the 5X's top grille isn't also a speaker for a dual speaker setup, but honestly for the price I'm just happy that Google put it on the front rather than the bottom like some other flagship devices. The speaker quality isn't going to blow your socks off by any means. It's not very deep and it gets really distorted at higher medium to high levels, but again for the price I think it's just fine and it'll get the job done for sure. Moving on to performance, we have a hexa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 808 processor clocked at 1.8 GHz along with an Adreno 418 GPU and 2 GB of RAM. What does that mean in simple everyday terms? Well, it means smooth as butter performance actually. I haven't noticed a single slowdown or hiccup since I've had the phone, except for Snapchat being really laggy at times, but I think that has more to do with Snapchat than it does with the phone, since that happened on my Nexus 6 after updating it to Android 6.0 as well. Anyway, everything from browsing the web, multitasking, and even playing something like GTA San Andreas has all gone without a hitch. Now the only thing that may be a slight issue is the 2 GB of RAM. I often notice web pages or apps reloading when I have a lot of other things open, and it may be due to the smaller amount of RAM having trouble keeping things in memory and reloading them when they're called upon at a later time. It's really not a big deal to me, but it can be a little annoying having to wait for a page or app to load up again. Lastly, we have battery life. So the 5X is sporting a 2700 mAh battery, which seems to be okay getting me through a 12-hour use cycle so long as I'm not watching a lot of YouTube or taking a ton of photo or video. The fact that it's running Android 6.0, which includes a feature known as doze to help decrease battery usage during standby time, makes getting through a day a little easier. But if you find that it just isn't enough for you, there's always the included quick charger, which I found to get me from 39 to 90% in about 50 minutes. Now mind you, I was using the phone to send text messages during this time, which is why it took longer than estimated. But either way, I still had plenty more juice after just 25 minutes of charging. So while the 5X may not have the ability to go the whole day under heavy conditions, fast charging can really remedy that if it's an issue. So has Google succeeded in reviving the Nexus 5? Absolutely. This phone is even more today than what the Nexus 5 was in its day for just a little bit more cash. The 5X is very compact, and whenever I mention how it feels using it to my girlfriend, I always go back to saying it's a small, comfy little phone because that's certainly the truth. The 5X brings back everything that was great about the 5 and improves upon it in many ways. Overall, it's a fantastic budget-minded phone that will continue to get quick software updates, give you a clean Android experience as it was envisioned by Google, and finally a great camera. And the fact that it sports both a fingerprint sensor and NFC certainly doesn't hurt either. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe down there for more videos such as my upcoming Nexus 6P coverage, which is in the works and on the way. Have a good Friday and a happy Halloween to you all, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.